Perfect Blue is a 1997 psychological thriller, horror, and drama surrounding the life of one Mima Kirigoe. Mima is a Japanese pop idol who is about to perform her last show. After this last show, Mima will be moving on to acting. One of her two managers has their doubts, while the other seems supportive of the decision. Either way, Perfect Blue takes our viewers down a seemingly innocent choice that spirals quite quickly out of control. Released in 1997, Perfect Blue was based on the novel Perfect Blue Complete Metamorphosis by Yoshikazu Takeichi. I'm gonna have to learn Japanese if I'm gonna keep doing things that require me to pronounce Japanese without sounding like a complete gaijin.
I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese. Understand that? Gaijin.
Originally, Perfect Blue was slated to be a live-action film. However, according to the sources, the Kobe earthquake in 1994 was the turning point, which resulted in the film changing direction. I came across some places that say 1995, but 1994 seems to line up with Satoshi Kon saying that he was brought on to direct the project, and when he was hired, he was told at the time it was an OVA-type film. So that seems to be the more likely case to me. There are other sources that mention the film suffering funding, scheduling, and production issues, but most of these too are connected to the industry's slump as a result of the earthquake. This film would also be Satoshi Kon's debut directorial film. He was given creative freedom to rewrite much of the original novel's stalker thriller plot into something more psychological. It should be mentioned that Satoshi is quoted as having only read through the rough plot given to him by the producers and not the original novel. In the Japanese version of Perfect Blue, the casting of Mima is played by Junko Iwao. Junko was a pop idol with a similar innocent, cheerful persona. The contrast of that and Mima's dark trajectory with Japanese audiences really added to the film's themes as it played with reality as well. You may also be familiar with Junko's voice as she voices the character Kikiyo in Hunter x Hunter. It should be definitely mentioned, and I'll say it again before the story breakdown, this film contains very mature themes to include nudity and visual depictions of SA. Going forward from this point, there will be spoilers, and I'll be saving my final thoughts and recommendations for the end of the video. So if you want to see that and skip the spoilers, jump to the timestamp on screen. On the other hand, if you're okay listening to me yap about this film, including a story breakdown, then please stick around. I'd also like to mention that I've opened a Patreon to fund the channel. If you like the channel and you want to support your favorite Baldy, link is in the description below, as well as my affiliate links to the equipment I use on a day-to-day basis. All right, back to the review. Anyone who knows me or has watched the channel long enough has heard me drone on about not being an anime guy. For those of you who might be new, the quick version is this. I watched anime when I was very young and then fell out of love with it after about the millionth filler episode of Naruto. I got one episode of something interesting happening between Naruto and Hinata, and then had to wait another episode, then another episode came, and it was more nothing about nothing. Then it was like it just died for me. What I've learned mostly in this past year, having gone back to give anime another try, is that I definitely prefer a certain style of anime over others. The 90s and even the 80s anime style seem to have a deep love in my heart. I enjoy the more realistic anime, which I do feel like this anime seems to capture. To be clear, I don't mind characters doing unrealistic things, but I'm not a fan of the cutesy art styles that seem to be more prevalent today. Hopefully I do a good job of showing what I mean on screen. I think the best difference is looking at something like Cowboy Bebop and then looking at something like maybe Hunter x Hunter or even One Piece. Both of those latter shows I find visually unappealing. Anyway, that's all preference. Perfect Blue does an amazing job of drawing very realistic characters. While you may notice certain characters having really strange faces, we'll actually cover that detail later in the video, so keep it in your back pocket. One thing to say that could really sum up everything I'll say about this cinematography is this. Every moment feels impressively directed and thought out. Every shot planned. It's hard to nail down shots that aren't meaningful in some way. Even these opening shots at the venue are great establishing shots that give you a grasp of the crowd they'll be performing for. I love the natural feeling of the camera movement. For these scenes, I can't fully explain it, but it's great. Even though this is an anime, every scene relies heavily on the atmosphere built through the construction of each shot, how it's edited, and even sounds. As I mentioned earlier, you'll notice sometimes that when a cut is coming, you'll hear the next scene before it starts, which is a technique you'd be familiar with if you were literally watching any YouTuber doing travel content in that phase of YouTube in 2016 or 2018. As far as sound editing, you'll notice that the film in the earlier stages is more quiet, and as things get more and more tense for Mima, more and more soundscaping is added to the point of constant tension. This will be my second warning for viewers. This film contains very mature themes to include nudity and visual depictions of SA. Perfect Blue opens with a Power Rangers style live show. Among the crowd, we hear fans discussing different performances and underground recordings of these shows. We see a young woman, Mima Kirigoe, getting ready to perform. And as she takes the stage, the title drops. Now, there are times like this when we can see, for whatever reason, it's easier not to put too much detail into further away aspects. And we see it again later in the crowd. Now, my understanding as I write this, all animes and even cartoons do this. And while this technique doesn't necessarily ruin the film for me, it more throws me off. We also get really cool shots like these, where we get kind of a backward tracking shot that's got a parallax depth to the animation. Now, Mima, we see her practicing the timing of her song on the train, laced with flashbacks to the show itself. The sequence of her everyday life is interlaced with the performance, and these transitions are amazingly done. The way the music cues you up to the next scene, it feels so seamless. Like her moving her head flows into her being at the supermarket. This is all really well done and plays deeply into the psychological nature of the film's latter half. Turns out the discussion we're hearing is between her two managers. Again, this is all laced between flashback cuts. We see the two managers reflected in the windows behind Mima, which I get the feeling plays into the angel and devil on your shoulders kind of aspect. A security guard gets his ass handed to him while the girls are on stage and trying to announce Mima's retirement. Now remember, we're going to be discussing that very wide gap between his eyes, I promise. They eventually announce Mima's last performance and they perform the last song. Mima's leaving the show to go home when we get yet another glimpse of this weirdo security guard. Mima's got a pretty cool 90s home. Very cozy, very chill. Mima takes down her Cham poster from her wall. She goes through her mail, where she gets a weird fan letter. The tension is broken by a phone call from her mother. I should mention we get some small audio cuts of strange things being heard from the crowd. Mima's mom talks about her leaving her job. She gets another call with no one on the end. Then she receives a weird stalker fax. I don't read Japanese, so I had to look it up. But basically, this paper just says, traitor, traitor, traitor. Later, we see Mima on set, practicing lines between takes. This was made in the early days of the internet, so this strange page is called Mima's Room, a fan page supposedly. Mima only has one line, but at this point we get a glimpse of a woman who is seemingly alone in this big world. She's meek and kind, and it seems like she almost gets discouraged in this moment. Another celebrity chats with the writer and the producer. Another one of Mima's managers is trying to get her more lines. They present him a fan letter that's meant for Mima, and when he opens this fan letter, it explodes and seriously hurts him. Shit gets really serious really fast. Apparently that manager wants to keep it under wraps. Fantastic decision. I'm sure that won't have negative repercussions for everybody involved at all. Her other manager is at her house setting up a Macintosh. Yes, I said a Macintosh. She shows Mima how to use it, and it's a cute little scene. Or it would be if a man didn't almost die opening one of Mima's fan letters about 2 minutes ago. This will be our first strange turn of character for Rumi, where we see her being super cautious and caring for a client to suddenly brushing off a bomb in a fan letter. Not to mention, this naive woman is getting on the internet when it's at its most uncontrolled. She goes on the fan website and at first laughs at how well they know her, but then she gets scared. They even have recordings of her practicing her lines on set. Cut to Mima on set again. Her male manager is fighting for acting roles, while Rumi really wants her to go back to Cham. At this time, the pop group manager swings by and catches up with them. Poor Mima is now understandably suspicious on the way home. On her way back, we see what looks like the creepy security guard again. The new Cham group is celebrating making the top 100 for the first time when Mima gets her next script. Mima does another scene and we see the creepy security guy again. The writer talks about the new developments for Mima's character. They decided to give her a SA scene. She takes it very naively, not wanting to disappoint anybody. At this point, I should mention this is kind of a brave and stupid decision given how dangerous her personal life is becoming. Given the nature of this scene, I'll definitely be skipping over it and not putting it in the video. Religion and faith aside, I do believe that the director's work should be respected, and I'd like for viewers to go and watch within the bounds of the film, experiencing the full weight of these scenes as the director and those who worked on the project intended for them to be experienced. This scene isn't what I expected, and I'm not even sure how to describe all the different things I hate. I also have to express how terribly uncomfortable this is, even if it is supposedly fake. As a director myself, I find this kind of thing completely skippable. Mima's manager, Rumi, breaks down crying and leaves. Mima on set breaks down too, going from fake crying to genuinely breaking down and going blank. Mima seems to be okay, and maybe she fooled me there for a second too, but I kind of doubt it. As you can imagine, this scene is infamous for how it portrays exploitation in the idol entertainment industry. Later, when she gets home, her little fishes are dead, and I believe this to be a metaphor for the death of her innocence. She breaks down crying, saying she didn't even want that job, she just did it because she didn't want to cause trouble. Now we see the weirdo security guard is shown, and honestly, what he's writing about the producers seems more honest than anyone else is willing to say in her actual life. Mima starts seeing her pop idol persona talking to her, calling her a slut, tarnished, filthy, all kinds of crazy ass shit. We then cut to the scumbag writer, and he's parking his car when he notices a strange note in his parking spot. Now he goes to take the elevator, and the elevator has a boombox that's playing Mima's music. We get a later cut where the elevator comes up and we see that the writer is dead, slumped in the elevator with his eyes plucked out. We then cut to the other Cham girls talking about the photographer that Mima will be posing for. Apparently, he has a reputation for getting girls to go naked. The girls make comments about Mima not being worried about that sort of thing because she likes it. They get caught by Mima's manager and get sent on stage. Back with Mima, Mima actually does go nude for the shoot, but after the shoot, we find her sulking in the bathroom as her old self says she won't be going on stage. We then see the pop idol version of Mima go out on stage with the Cham girls. And at this same time, the nude photos of Mima are released. The stalker man at his local magazine rack sees this and buys what seems to be every copy he could get possible. The stalker then writes a story online about an imposter posing as Mima. We also see pop idol Mima with the stalker guy, which is very strange. Mima later goes to visit some of the other girls on their radio show when she then sees the pop idol version of herself with them, and a chase ensues. If it isn't already obvious at this point, a lot of reality bending, twisting, and strange transitions leave a lot of things open-ended. We're now back to Rumi coming by to check on Mima. She's obviously down, unsure about acting. The way that this is cut, it's almost like she's having a hard time keeping track of her own memories. She winds up hurting her hands while breaking a cup. She keeps going on to the stalker website and is clearly getting more and more in her head. In her role on the TV series, her character goes from an SA victim to a straight up murderer, and fiction and reality begins to bend so frequent I can't even tell what's real. The man she killed on the TV show may have been killed in real life. I can't even tell if she really took those nude photos or not. But we see she finds bloody clothes in her closet. It seems like her TV role and her real life are becoming one. The assault scene snapped her in two. Ironically, she has to film a murder scene similar to the real murder. In the show, she's even pretending to be an actress. This movie does a crazy good job blurring the lines, confusing events so much I'm not even sure what really happened to her. On my first watch through, I was completely lost at certain moments, but in a good way. This surreal moment of the crew celebrating rap after everything she went through is gut-wrenching. She even mistakenly calls her fellow actress doctor and then is corrected. This is when we get our second and thankfully last SA scene. Poor Mima finds herself alone and held at knife point by the stalker. While this scene is definitely an SA scene, it's also an action scene and plays a very deep contrast to the Mima that we've gotten to know from the beginning of the film. After ripping open her blouse, she breaks free. He catches her again after she dodges a couple stab attempts, but she grabs a hammer and drives it into his head. She lives out a scene similar to the TV show, and as she huffs and puffs over his body, a surreal moment happens. Lights kick on and a crowd claps. Rumi finds Mima later torn and beaten. She shows Rumi the body, or where the body should have been, but then Rumi asks if she had dreamed whether or not she had been SA'd, which is a strange thing to ask someone whose clothes are torn up and they're stumbling around naked. I mean, Rumi, what the hell? It's at this point that Rumi says, "Don't worry, we're going to go take you back to Mima's room," which I thought was weird because if someone's going to take me home, they're not going to go, "Hey, I'm going to take you back to Donovan's apartment." You know what I mean? Anyway, we're back home when we notice that the poster is back on the wall, the fish is alive, and then we see Pop Idol Mima again. But it's not Pop Idol Mima. It's Rumi dressed as Mima. Now we get this really cool scene here where Rumi and Mima start fighting, and as Rumi is trying to kill Mima, she gets choked by Mima. And as she's getting choked, her face changes from Pop Idol Mima to Rumi. It's gross and really crazy. I mean, it's insane animation. I love everything about it. This action scene between Rumi and Mima goes on for a while. They're chased through streets and rooftops, and it's all eerily very empty. Mima gets really beaten up, but when Rumi's wig flies off, she lunges and falls through some glass, trying to catch it. She then stumbles out onto the highway where she's nearly hit by a truck, but then Mima saves Rumi from being hit. Later, Mima brings flowers for Rumi, who now suffers from a dissociative state splitting her between Mima's personality and her real self. The movie then ends with Mima sitting in her car, looking at herself in the rearview mirror and saying, "No, I'm the real thing." As promised from before, let's talk about that crazy space between the eyes. Now, if you'll notice, the three characters I noticed were the manager, the stalker, and the photographer. Now, there are some other characters that you could maybe arguably say have weird facial structure in some way, but I think the manager, the stalker, and the photographer are the ones that stick out the most, and I think it has something to do with each of their state mentally and kind of their untrustworthiness, something devious behind their eyes, something nasty to their personality. And we know this by the things that they do. So now that we know that Rumi had been pretending to be Mima, it does also open this can of worms of, okay, but was she hallucinating some of these things? Because obviously this woman can't float down a street. There are times when Rumi and Mima was in the room in the Mima outfit and Mima couldn't tell. Is it because the psychological breakdown? This is one of those things I genuinely appreciate in this film, but it can also be very confusing when you try to make sense of it. This moment here really highlights what I'm saying, because before, what actually happened? Did Mima really go back out on the stage, or did Rumi go out on the stage? I mean, the crowd would have complained seeing Rumi and not Mima, so what's actually happening? Another scene that I think people can overlook or forget, but this is it, this moment of realization. Yet again, another decision you made is out there for the world to see. This is perfectly reflected in her dunking herself in the bath, and I think it also plays into the feeling of drowning in poor decision, drowning in desires for fame and success, drowning in the guilt and shame. Perfect Blue is a surreal psychological thriller that masterfully blurs the lines between fiction and reality, exposing the vulnerability of women in the entertainment industry and how fame, exploitation, and obsession can fracture a person's sense of self. My final thoughts are this. Perfect Blue is a fantastic thrill ride of psychological horror and real commentary on the predatory and manipulative nature of the entertainment industry. I would recommend this film to anyone going into the entertainment industry, like schools handing out required reading. There are some aspects I do wish the film highlighted more, such as coming to grips with poor decisions that were made as far as actually articulating them, avoiding similar decisions in the future, and even making it clear that fortune and fame are definitely not worth your dignity. Even with that being said, what the movie does cover, it covers extremely well and in ways that aren't terribly in your face either. It doesn't force perspectives onto you, but it does give you the room to put yourself in the place of Mima during the journey and the ups and downs of a simple career decision. It captures just how fast something can spin out of control, how fast reputations, friendships, and self-worth can change from off-the-cuff decisions. This film also captures the very brutal and real nature of the many, many wolves that lurk among us, positioned in places where they can abuse such power on the weak and needy. If you're okay with films that have a stronger, more mature adult nature, but deliver on the narrative, suspense, and worth of the film as a whole, then I highly recommend Perfect Blue and would even give it a 10 out of 10. Even if I have some small gripes with it here and there, it's hard to argue with a film that captivates its audience, stays extremely focused on its plot while speaking on deep, deep issues, and feels like it goes by far quicker than expected. Well, that's my review on Perfect Blue. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe as it helps the channel. Let me know how you feel about this new review style as well, and what you'd like to see in the future down in the comments below. If you'd really like to go above and beyond, please feel free to use the Patreon link down below, as it helps with keeping the channel going and the reviews coming out. You'll get access to videos like this a few days earlier than the YouTube release, alongside BTS/journal of the process with my thoughts. Not really concerning the review, but just the project as a whole. You'll also get access to polls and suggestions when those are put out, and your name will be in the video. I'll catch you all in the next review. Peace and love.
You have been promoted. You are now one of my elite employees. You missed some trash over there, honey.